Hi, my name is Dr. Eric Woodruff. It's my pleasure to announce the inductees for the 2020 Energy Managers Hall of Fame. If you didn't know, the Energy Managers Hall of Fame is a unique group of people, and we pick these people every year, to be voted on by the other Energy Manager Hall of Fame members that already exist, and it basically comes down to three criteria on the application. The first criteria is your contributions to the field, your lifetime achievements, that sort of thing. Second one is your present job responsibilities and what you're doing right now, and perhaps what you've done in your career, job-wise or employment-wise. And the third one is your service to the association. So we look at those criteria, we try to vet out the ones that meet the criteria, and then we put it to the vote for the Hall of Fame members, and they pick the winners. And so it's with great pleasure I'd like to introduce our first inductee, Mr. John Feldman. Now, John is the Chief Technology Officer for the Independent System Operator up in Canada, which is responsible for about 25,000 megawatts of peak electricity. He's been involved for many years in the energy management field. Of course, the minimum is 20, and I know John has definitely beat that. But he's also a founding member of the National Resources Council in Canada and a well-known DSM expert, demand-side management. He's also been responsible or involved with about 600,000 megawatts of savings. So, fantastic achievements. But what I wanted to compliment John on the most in my introduction was he's probably the most polite energy manager we're going to have in the Hall of Fame. He is just fantastically polite, and he's involved with the CEM program, the Certified Energy Manager program, and provides feedback in such a way that, he just is so gracious. So with that, it's my honor to induct Mr. John Feldman into the Energy Managers Hall of Fame for 2020. And with that, here is John's speech.
Hello, and greetings from Canada to all those energy management professionals from around the globe that are joining us today. I am incredibly honored to be included in this list of luminaries that have gone before George and I. Now the two of us will have a special place in history as being the first, and hopefully only, virtual inductees into the Hall of Fame. I am deeply humbled by this great and unexpected honor. Now that phrase is used quite often these days, and so I wanted to be sure its meaning and my sincerity were not lost through cliché. For me, humility means acknowledging that this is not my own doing. It was our beloved Isaac Newton who said, "If I have seen a little further, it is because I have stood on the shoulders of giants." Now for me, this recognition comes from having stood on the shoulders of the hundreds of ordinary and yet exceptional energy managers and energy engineers that I have had the privilege of engaging with over the past 2 decades. It is both fitting and necessary for me to thank each of them from the bottom of my heart for the role that they have played in me being here today. Naturally, there are some people that I would like to thank individually. First and foremost, I want to thank Jesus, because without the gifts and talents that He has given me, I would have nothing to offer. I simply must thank my wife of 31 years, Lil, who has always been a strong supporter of me throughout my career, in both the good times and in the bad. And to my 2 wonderful sons, Clive and Jamie, who had to endure, or perhaps enjoy, at times my absences from home. And to the man who introduced me to AEE and encouraged me to become the first Canadian CEM instructor, fellow Hall of Famer Doug Tripp. Now, many people strive to achieve fame and notoriety, but it has been my experience that fame is fleeting. And I suspect that most of you would be hard-pressed to name the Best Actor Oscar winners from, say, 5 years ago. On the other hand, I bet each of you can still remember the names of your favorite teachers or those bosses that had the positive impact on you. Now, it is in that vein that I owe the following people a debt of gratitude for helping me to understand that energy management is exciting, interesting, meaningful, and rewarding. To Ed Smith, Cole Stearns, and Jim Farrell of Hatch for sucking me into the energy management field to start my second career. To my current employer, the Independent Electricity System Operator of Ontario, which has given me a platform to promote and influence industrial energy efficiency and strategic energy management in our province and in our country, especially Nick Schroeder, Evelyn Lundhild, and Declan Doyle. Of course, there are many others, too numerous to mention. To the board of the Greater Toronto Area chapter, who supported me during my term as president and always made it fun and interesting. So many people over the years at the AEE who have supported me, encouraged me, influenced me, and inspired me. Folks like Eric Woodruff, Tim Janos, Mary Elise Cox, Helen Johnson, and Michelle Zaken-Leclerc. Again, so many others, but those are the folks that I worked with most directly. I'm also grateful for the support over the years to the wonderful staff at the Canadian Institute for Energy Training. And finally, a big thank you to Dr. Warren Heffington for nominating me. He clearly saw something in me that I did not see in myself. I expect that most of you have people in your life to thank for the positive impact they've had on you. So, if you have not done that or have not done that recently, I would encourage you to do that today. Now, yesterday I came across a quote from a gentleman by the name of Oswald Chambers who lived in the 1800s, and I think it is pretty apt for this ceremony today. He said, "It is not what a man does that is of final importance, but what he is in what he does. The atmosphere produced by a man, much more than his activities, has the lasting influence." And in closing, I would like to leave you with this bit of advice. Listen more than you speak. Always be willing to learn and be generous with the knowledge that you have gained. As the Bible says, and what I have found to be true, you always reap what you sow, and it is definitely more blessed to give than to receive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, for that delightful acceptance speech. You're always such a pleasure. The final inductee to the 2020 Hall of Fame, Energy Managers Hall of Fame, is Mr. George Benda. And George had a 40-year career doing all kinds of wonderful things, advancing wind, solar, renewables, involved with lots of projects at hospitals, involved with projects at universities, ESCOs, $50 million performance contracts, worked in advancing IAQ, wrote books and developed curriculum to further advance the field. I'm really thankful to get this message. I want to tell you that George won the award. I called him. He said, "You've made my day, you've made my year," and it gave me great joy over the phone. And he was in Hawaii, that's where he lived. He, just like everybody, recorded his acceptance speech. And unfortunately, 30 minutes after he recorded that, the speech you're about to see, he passed away. So I invite you to listen to his wise words. And I want to quote a couple of them. "The future is in your hands. Try to avoid the terminal stumble." And I hope these messages and the other messages you'll hear in a couple minutes inspire you to progress for the future of all our generations, as George said, and most particularly in harmony with the earth. Thank you very much, George, and congratulations.
Hi, I'm George Benda. First of all, thank you for this high honor. I'm both humbled and proud to be inducted today into the Association of Energy Engineers, Energy Managers Hall of Fame. I'd like to do a quick shout out to a few folks who've been important in this process. First to Russ Kohler, who nominated me for this high honor. Russ himself, Hall of Famer, is also the president of the Hawaii chapter of AEE. I'd also like to give a good shout out to the late Al Thuman. He built a tremendous organization at AEE. And some of the people that I've known here, and I'm thinking specifically right now of Ruth Whitlock, have really contributed to the quality of my life over the past many years. I'd like to give a shout out to Barney Burroughs and Shirley Hansen, who have been friends and mentors, particularly in the indoor air quality arena. And to my late friend, Dave Munn. He was the senior engineer through most of my career, 30 years we worked together. Wonderful person. Thank you, Dave. These kinds of awards, Lifetime Achievement Awards, get you to look in a mirror. I chose to look in my bathroom mirror. Now, immediate appearance, it's the same as you see. The white hair, the receding hairline, the wrinkles, the age spots. These all show that I've put in a lot of hard work, and I hope that hard work is reflected in my accomplishments. And I'm also hopeful that my accomplishments, along with yours and those of the teams that I've worked on, have contributed to an improvement in society and technology. But you know, along the way, there have been an awful lot of lessons, and I've tried to take those lessons up, but as an industry, there are lots of lessons that have not been learned, or at least not transmitted to our society in general. It's been almost 20 years since Al Gore told us the inconvenient truth about carbon and climate change. More than 40 years ago, the nice young couple of Hunter and Amory Lovins told us about their concept of brittle power, about the ways in which our energy supply and distribution systems could fail under certain kinds of stress. And now we're seeing in the 2020s, we're seeing all of those things converge, and we're seeing the tremendous difficulty that's been building for more than a century. It's put us on a precipice, and at that precipice we have a choice. And we can look back and learn the lessons that folks have tried to tell us over those 40 years, or we can play hooky and ignore them. The stakes, though, I will tell you, are very high. If we stumble along the path that we're on, we will stumble from an inconvenient truth to a terminal truth, the end of life as we know it, the end of hope for future generations. It's in our hands, it's in your hands, to develop a happier scenario, to find a place for hope, to look at what we do as offering the potential for comfort, for ease, and for security for all the world's people, and even more so, harmony with the earth, because ultimately without that, none of these things can happen. To all of you energy engineers, I say, let's learn the lessons and make the right choices. You're already aware of most of the tools. Most of them are well developed, things like energy efficient end use, renewable energy, batteries, of course, expanding on some of the technologies that are still emergent but should be well developed by now, smart microgrids, and the development of a backbone grid smart enough to support all those microgrids. Those things need to happen. I was on a conference call recently for a utility solar project. That project is stalled because the PUC is looking at the current oil price and arguing that the cost of power with number 2 fuel oil is cheaper in the context, and they're rejecting all of the solar proposals to displace a fossil fuel plant. Well, this is a lesson not learned. For 40 years, I've been watching the same thing happen over and over again. Oil prices are volatile and subject to both political and economic manipulation. Cabals and cartels have proven that they can manipulate our future. Now, if we continue in our stumbling ways, we will stumble into that terminal truth. If we want to wake up, then we must overcome the barriers to our future success, and those barriers are more institutional than they are technical. So in my few minutes, I implore you to remember, even the most brilliant innovation accomplishes absolutely nothing if it is not appropriated into the ongoing culture of those who use it. This is your opportunity to learn the lessons and to be the change that makes a better future. Thanks again to all of you who have helped me along the way to a lifetime of achievements. I'm both proud and humbled by the fact that you've determined my achievements to be worthy of this award. Aloha.
Well, thank you very much for attending the 2020 Hall of Fame induction ceremony. My congratulations to our inductees this year. And I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge some other Hall of Fame members which we have lost in the last year. I'll note notable Dr. Shirley Hansen, who was a pioneer in the ESCO field, Dr. Dan Turner, who did a tremendous amount of work at the Energy Systems Lab and Texas A&M, Dr. Barney Capehart, who was a true co-creator of the CEM program and a wonderful person and mentor to me, and also George Owens. George was the predecessor for the Hall of Fame chairman that I now represent, and George was a fantastic mentor as well. I wish you all the best and hope you have a wonderful 2021.